Hi again. Today we're going to continue our study of kings and queens. But first we'll go through our verse. Let's say it together once and then I'll tell you what we're going to do today. Whatever you do, do your work heartily, as for the Lord rather than for man. Colossians 3:23. So remember we said that heartily means with your whole heart. All right. So today, what we're going to do is I would have you, if you have pretty good handwriting, can write pretty big, take a piece of paper and write out the verse like this is. If you have a hard time with that, you can, and you have the ability to, you can have your mom or dad print it off on a piece of paper like this. But what we're going to do today is we're going to cut it apart. For instance, we'll take the Colossians off from here, and then maybe, see, we're going to make a puzzle, so maybe we'll cut it in half, so you have to go like that. And you can cut every word out like that, all right? Or every couple of words, all right? And then when you're all done, mix up all the pieces and of course try to put them back together again. And that helps your brain kind of learn it. You have to learn the words as you're putting them together. So that's kind of cool. Okay? All right. And we're actually going to do a second week this week on King Solomon. David's son Solomon, the one that built, last week we talked about him building the temple. And it's in 1 Kings. So let's figure out where that is in the Bible. Is it Old Testament or New Testament? It's Old Testament. So let's start with Genesis. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings. There we go. So 11th. All right. So, and that makes sense that they'd be talking about kings in the books of Kings, right? All right. So what I want you to do today is gather up some things, okay? Solomon, first of all, we'll talk a little bit about Solomon. I kind of mentioned a little bit last week about Solomon that God came to him when he was going to be king and said, what would you like? I'll grant you anything that you would like, since you're going to be king over Israel now. And he could have asked for riches. He could have asked for a lot of different things that maybe you or I might ask for. But he didn't. You know what he asked for? He asked for wisdom. Understanding is just being able to understand something, okay? Wisdom is the use of that knowledge that you've got up here, using it wisely, using it well. And in this case, hopefully using it for the Lord, okay? And of course, whenever you use something for the Lord, that's always the wisest use, isn't it? But he asked for wisdom. Solomon asked for wisdom. And God said, and the reason he asked for that is because he knew he was going to be ruling over all God's people. And that's an awesome task, like huge, isn't it? What they would say, daunting task. And so he asked for wisdom to be able to do well with the people, to be able to judge. They were judges. They made a lot of decisions. Kings and presidents and people do that, right? They make a lot of huge decisions. So he asked for wisdom, and God said, you have asked for something great. That's an awesome thing to ask for. And since you asked for that, I am going to give you all the other things that you asked for too, like the riches, all those things, okay? Fame, more than you can imagine, right? And so Solomon did have a lot of wisdom, and before you know it, all the kings and queens from all over the world, a lot of them were coming to listen to Solomon and his wisdom, and to see him do his judgments, and to talk and everything. And they brought him gifts, which is one of the reasons he got rich. And of course, that's fame, isn't it? When everybody around knows about your wisdom. Okay, so he gave them all those things too, okay? And there was a special one that the Bible mentions called the Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba had to see for herself. She wanted to talk to Solomon. And so we're going to hear today about the Queen of Sheba's visit, all right? But first, we need some royal costumes. So if you have your crown from a few weeks ago that we made, you can use that. Or you can go make another one, or you can wear something else. Maybe you have some princess tiaras for the girls, and maybe some crowns that the boys might have around. Or if you have any scepters, you know, the thing that they have in their hand, or maybe a baton or something you can pretend is a scepter. Or maybe some fancy jewelry, right? They wear a lot of fancy jewelry. And maybe you even have a king or queen's robe or something that would work for that. So go get all dressed up like a king or a queen, find a throne, and have a seat and come back. All right? Okay, so the Queen of Sheba came in a huge royal caravan of camels and servants. She had all the stuff she brought with her. She brought spices and gold and precious jewels to give to the king. That's what we were talking about, right? So what I want you to do is I want the queens to pretend that they're arriving at the king's palace. Or maybe the kings, well, this is King Solomon, so we will use the queens, and you'll be the Queen of Sheba, and the boys will be the King Solomon, okay? Of course, if you don't have any boys or you don't have any girls, you can make do, okay? You can have one pretend. But she talked with the King Solomon and asked him some really hard questions, okay? And King Solomon could answer all her tough questions. She was most impressed. So kings and queens pretend to talk, okay? So you can act it out today. When the Queen of Sheba saw how smart and rich, how wise King Solomon was, she was amazed. So queens, go like this. Give your amazed look, okay? Listen to what she said. And I forgot my paper. So if you look up, we'll have you do it this time, okay? 1 Kings 10, verse 9. Look it up, have your parents help you, and see what the Queen of Sheba told King Solomon, and then come back. Okay, then the king and queen exchanged more gifts. Boy, this sounds like quite a party, doesn't it? Okay, before she left. All right, so now pretend you're handing each other gifts, and then the queen can go ahead and leave. All right? All right. So what do you think is the greatest thing about Solomon? What do you think? Do you think it was his wisdom? Do you think it was all the gold? Or being famous? You talk about that. All right. Tell about a time that you met an amazing person. What do you think made that person amazing? I know of one that I've met recently that I think is just amazing. It's a lady who has a program that she just started. I don't know if you'd call it a program, but an organization. She's a very young lady. She's only in her 20s. Her and her husband have made an organization that helps to raise money for women who are pregnant with babies, that will help them to make the right decisions for those babies, and to be able to grow those babies up, and so that those babies can live and live well. And I've just been so amazed with what she's been able to do. She's saved a lot of babies. So that's awesome, isn't it? That's one person. I've met quite a few amazing people in my life, though. But you talk about who you think is amazing. Maybe it's just your mom or dad. They're definitely amazing, aren't they? Okay, the thing that made Solomon great, though, wasn't his gold or all the food he had or the big fancy palace or not even his wisdom, was it? Okay, it was that God had given him everything he had. Okay, that was what was special. That was what they saw when they arrived. They were like, this isn't anything that a man would normally have. They knew God had given it to him. And that's what the Queen of Sheba was saying in our verse, wasn't it? How she praised God for Solomon. But she didn't praise Solomon. She praised God for all that she saw and how God had blessed Solomon and Israel. Okay? The Queen of Sheba, she understood, okay, that it was God behind it. Okay, now we're going to have a little bit of fun. The Queen of Sheba was surprised, wasn't she, that Solomon could answer all her questions. Nothing seemed too hard for him. Let's see if you can answer some tough questions. Now, these are kind of silly questions, so don't get too worried about it, okay? But you'll want to talk about them a little bit and see if you can answer them, okay? And when you're done talking, you can come back on here the next one. But anyway, why does a round pizza come in a square box? Have you ever thought about that? Okay, if the earth is round, why don't people on the bottom of it feel like they're upside down? Why is it called a funny bone when it's not so funny to hit it? Why do people drive on a parkway and park on a driveway? That's an interesting one. And what hair color do they put in the driver's licenses of bald men? Do you know how you have your driver's license and it says a hair color on there? What hair color do they put in there? Or maybe they write bald? I don't know. I'll have to ask somebody that's bald sometime. Okay, so which one of those questions was hardest for you to answer? And maybe I should ask you which one you thought was the funniest. Tell about a time when you had a hard time answering someone's question. Sometimes people ask some pretty hard questions. I remember one in particular when I was young. I was in college. And a girl who was pregnant that I was helping, she asked me if the Bible said that it was okay for her to date, she was white, if it was okay for her to date a black guy. And that's a really hard question to answer. I think I know the answer to it now. But you know what I told her? And this is a good answer if you ever have to answer a really hard question and you don't know it. You can tell them, I really don't know, but I'll be glad to try to find out for you. And then you go study it. And that's what I told her. I didn't know, but I told her I would study it out and come back. And I did. But I kind of told her right up front, this is what I found in the Bible about it. But I'm still not 100% sure. Okay? Because the Bible doesn't answer specifically that question. All right. How has wisdom from God helped you know what to do in tough situations? That's where, when you're reading your Bible, learning more and more about God and going to Sunday school and listening to Pastor and going to Awana and learning your verses, that really helps because God will put them here when you need them, okay? And obviously praying too. You could, I don't know if you're in the habit of doing this, but it's a really good habit to pray real quick before you read Scripture and ask Him for wisdom. Because it says if anybody asks wisdom, that God will give it to them. There's a verse on that. I don't know exactly which one it is, but I hear it in my brain. Okay. Well, the Bible doesn't say what questions the Queen of Sheba had for Solomon. It doesn't say. But they were probably important questions she had, not silly ones like the ones we just did, right? Okay. And we saw when she saw the wisdom that God had given to Solomon, that he could answer questions, she was amazed. You don't have to answer silly questions like the one I asked for people. Let's see, wait a minute. I think I'm saying this wrong. You don't have to answer silly questions like the one I asked for people to see God in your life. You know, you don't have to do that. When you show wisdom in the decisions that you make in your everyday life, okay, people see that. They're amazed by you. You know, that, for instance, as you get older, like that your children are following God. Now, that's not to say if they're not, that it's your fault, but that they're following God and different things like that, okay? Or if they see like just little decisions, like maybe that you don't lie, or that you're kind and that you love people. Those kinds of things all show people your love from God, that you spend time in God's presence. That's what I want to say. All right. So we can be amazed by God, and we can help others to be amazed by God too. So that's something for us to work on this week, isn't it? All right. And wear your crown while you're doing it. So, all right. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.